Alright, you guys. For this project, I want you to notice a few things. We are doing what's called a negative space painting. We're also going to do a tape design for this painting, again with watercolor. First step on your paper, get the bigger size watercolor paper. I can't even get out far enough to show you the whole piece of paper. But notice that I've taped off my edges again. You're going to use the thickest, widest tape when you do that. Don't forget when you pull your strips, stick them to your jeans or whatever, de-sticky them before you do the frame around your paper. Next step, grab a pencil. I want you to draw for me 1 or 2 organic shapes. If you look to the right on your screen, I've given you an example. Organic shapes are ones that have curving edges, okay? So I chose a bottle. I was just looking for something kind of simple, something with curving edges. A geometric shape is the opposite. It's going to have really straight sides and really perfect angles. We're going to do the geometric part using our masking tape here in a second. So choose an organic shape to draw, to put on wherever you feel like on your paper. You kind of have to decide how you want to lay this out. Examples of an organic shape: a butterfly, a dolphin, the bottle. My other example for this piece, I used a tree. So anything with curving edges works perfectly for this. Once you're done drawing that out, draw lightly. We don't want a whole lot of pencil line. There are 2 other rolls of tape that should be sitting around. So I've got my thick one for the border, and I've got a really skinny one and kind of a medium skinny one. You can use either, or you can use both. It's up to you. Just like before, whenever you're going to use tape, you need to de-sticky it on your jeans. I'm going to use this tape to break up this whole picture. So you're creating your geometric shapes by using the tape. So I have a piece of tape here. I'm sticking it to my jeans right now, and then I'm going to lay it across my page in any design that I like. So as I keep going here, what I want you to think about is that we are going to paint all the areas that don't have tape, and we're painting the areas that are outside of our organic shape. So remember again, my organic shape is this bottle. When I get ready to paint, when I get ready to paint, I will not be painting anything inside the bottle or your organic shape. Everything where I paint is going to be out here in my negative spaces, and I'm going to have this tape help me create an interesting geometric design around the page. Alright, you guys, I don't know how well you can see it on the screen, but I went ahead and finished taping off my whole design. So I've got all kinds of angled lines going different directions. Think about it, you need to work a little bit slowly when you're doing your taping, because you do need to de-stick the tape a little bit before you put it down. And your tape is really your design in this particular project, so don't just slap it down any old way. That's the thing that's going to make this interesting. Next step, after you feel good about it, and you don't have any weird, let me go back a second, check your tape joints. Like if I could zoom in here, make sure the piece of tape that's ending ends perfectly on top of another piece of tape. Any piece of tape just left hanging here, it looks bad. It actually does really show. So make sure you have clean kind of ends to your tape. Right now what I'm working on is filling in all these negative spaces that we've left. Don't forget, I'm not going to paint in my organic shape. I'm also going to leave that white. This is called a negative space painting, meaning that all of my interest and color is going into my negative spaces, the spaces that have no pattern or detail. They're not an object. It's just the background. And what we're going to work on is doing a wet on wet technique. So I am just putting down water right onto the paper. And the only interest here is that I'm just taking my watercolor and just sort of dipping it right in there and letting it bleed. You can even pick up your paper and sort of walk the watercolor by tilting the paper left, right, up, down. It's up to you. One thing I'm going to be looking for on this assignment to really give it a little bit more interest is that you mix colors. So go ahead and work on that palette again like we've talked about. This one was left over. I'm just going to go ahead and use it. Getting it wet again, you can just pick that color right back up. But I don't want purple right now, so I'm going to put some red in there. I want to see you guys mixing some colors, because this color palette is pretty boring. It's not the most interesting set of colors. It's just the basics. But you can make any color you want, just like you did when we did our paint unit. This is a pretty big section I'm working on right here, so it's taking a lot of putting down water and then going back with my watercolor paints. In a smaller section like this one, I would just get it wet and then dip my color in and let it bleed, and that'd be it. I'm going to work here for a second. You can feel free to stop this video and get started on your design at any point. You can see my example up on the right side of your screen of my finished one that I did with a tree. You can also see some of the work that I'm modeling this after by an artist named Claire Cowie. She is a current artist. She works out of Washington, I believe, and she's a teacher at one of the universities up there. So if her work interests you, you might enjoy looking on the internet to see more of her ideas. She does a lot of work like this, the tape, resist, and the negative space, filling it with these interesting colors. One other thing I want to see you guys do, don't just use the same color the whole time. You need to make sure that you switch colors. So whenever you switch to a new section, it should be a different color. You shouldn't have the same color touching on each side. So make sure you're considering your color choices as you lay them down. This is a pretty big project for you guys. It should take you a few days, so it is going to be worth quite a lot of points. In every section, I use more than one color. So notice here I use some yellow and this orange color I made. Here I use some reds, orange, and this purple, the red color that it also made. So within every section, to give it interest, don't just paint one flat color in there. Make sure that you're considering colors that you can mix together. And remember what we know about color. Colors opposite on the color wheel are going to turn muddy. Is that what you want? That's okay. But maybe it's not what you want, so you need to kind of think about that as you start mixing in your colors. Now see, those are two basic colors right out of the jar of paint. I'm not real crazy about that. I'd like to see you kind of coming up with new colors. These look a little boring after a while. There's just something kind of flat about them. Don't forget before you start painting to wake up your watercolors. I was doing that while I was waiting for the video to warm up. That means putting that dab of water into each of your pans. If you don't do that, when you go to add the color to a wet on wet painting, nothing really comes off of the paint. So you need to kind of have it already wet before you add it to a wet on wet drawing. This blue is very strong. I'm not loving that. Okay, once you've filled all of your painting with watercolor, trying to focus on having mixed colors to make it more interesting, and you need to make sure it's totally dry. Then you can go in and start peeling your tape. You've got to work slowly on this. You know how I've taught you guys to pull tape at an angle? Remember we talked about this, always pulling away from your painting? Well, that's not quite possible as you're pulling right through the middle of a painting. Uh-oh, look what I just did. So work really slowly. Sometimes you have to kind of work it back and forth in different directions and just do the very best you can with it. If you need to, get an X-Acto knife for me because we can always keep an X-Acto knife on hand to sort of slice paper where you think it might start to tear. And I can see a difference here. I forgot to stick that piece and this piece to my jeans. I was getting lazy when I was working. So you will see that it makes a difference when you pull tape. You'll also find that sometimes it bleeds under. There's not a lot we can do to prevent that. Try your best to work the pieces of tape that are on top first, because otherwise sometimes it starts tearing if they're fighting each other as you're pulling. All right, I have a few tiny spots where my paper pulled. Anywhere you feel like it's kind of curling up on you, take a little glue stick and just sort of flatten that down. My purple glue will dry clear, so I'm not worried about that. This, I kind of lost my edge over here. Smear a little glue on that. Put that down. I think those were the major ones. Okay, so there it is, my finished project.